Arrow may have had its ups and downs, but it almost always ended the season on a high note. In this video, I will be ranking all the season finales of Arrow, excluding season 8, as that's the series finale and has a different significance. This ranking is purely my opinion, and there are definitely some unique takes. I'll also be going in depth with the negatives and positives of each finale, so stay tuned. At number 7 on the list, making it the worst season finale, is the season 4 finale, Schism. First of all, that is one of the coolest names for an episode. Schism means split or difference. I kind of see how this episode relates to that, but it's probably one of the coolest episode names on Arrow. I honestly think this episode is overhated and season 4 in general as well. Coming off of The Flash, I was surprised by the criticism that Arrow's season 4 received. If you've watched The Flash during its weaker seasons, you'd expect Arrow's worst seasons to mirror that level of drop off. But honestly, season 4 didn't fall off nearly as hard as The Flash did in its later seasons. It's still the worst season though, and the episode is still pretty bad. And it's also the worst rated episode on the show, but my point is it's not as bad as people say it is. The final fight between Damien Dark and Oliver Queen was pretty good, even though most people did not like it. Everyone is just hopeless in this episode, and the first 20 minutes feel like they are doing nothing. In the season 2 finale, Unthinkable, the episode starts off with Team Arrow being hopeless as well, but they don't give up. This episode feels too much like they've just given up and they're watching as chaos unfolds from the sidelines. Damien Dark nuking the planet that his daughter is still alive in seems just so wrong. It's also pretty lazy writing to just make a villain want to end the world. Curtis and Felicity were probably the worst parts of this season and episode. While I think that the fight between Oliver and Dark is fine, Curtis and Felicity stopping a nuclear threat that would end the world with just a couple of scenes of typing on a computer, along with the scene of Cooper being inspired to stop typing by Felicity, is just really underwhelming considering the scale of the threat. I do not agree with the Felicity hate and think that Oliver and Felicity were the right couple, but at the same time, they made her such an annoying character in season 4. The flashbacks also were the worst, and Oliver killing Tiana did not really have any emotional weight, and her performance was terrible as well. I may consider this episode overhated, but it was still a bad episode, putting it at the bottom of this list. This is also the only season finale to not get a rating of 8 or above on IMDb, since it got a devastating 5.6. So that puts Schism at number 7 on this list. Moving on, number 6 is the season 3 finale, My Name is Oliver Queen. I personally did not like this ending. It may not have been as bad as season 4, but I guess one of my problems is that everything just went too well. It felt very rushed. Ra's al Ghul is centuries old and he is the most experienced fighter. Defeating him did not feel special because Oliver and Felicity leave Star City immediately without acknowledging what they have just achieved and the consequences as well. One huge problem in general in Arrow is that Oliver's skills are never consistent. Defeating Ra's al Ghul makes him the best fighter in the world, but there are still inconsistencies after. Back to the season 3 finale, I was happy with them riding off into the sunset and everything, but they need to do better with how they pass on the torch. Oliver just gives the responsibility to others like it means nothing. It just felt so out of character for him. And in my opinion, the Hong Kong flashbacks were just as bad as the season 4 flashbacks, and the ending was also not that good for the Hong Kong flashbacks. So that puts My Name is Oliver Queen at number 6 on this list. Next, at number 5, is the season 6 finale, Life Sentence. I love this episode. It was really close between this and season 7 for the spot of number 5, but I'll explain why I love the season 7 finale next. But this was not a real ending. The real ending to this arc was season 7, episode 7, titled Slapside Redemption. In that episode, Oliver really defeats Diaz, he escapes prison, and he saves the day. It ended the Diaz arc. If they restructured season 6 to not have Cade and James at all, or shorten the Cade and James arc, then they could place the prison arc into the final episodes of season 6. But I'm still really happy with the prison arc as it is. The main problem is that this episode is just trying to extend the Diaz arc. Diaz escaping felt way too lazy. And Diaz could have been captured if it wasn't for Laurel, who accidentally helped him escape. She should have just let Oliver deal with Diaz and it would have been so much more logical. How did Laurel expect blowing him off a building to do anything? Secondly, going to prison did not have as many benefits as they said it would. They promised protection and all those things, but vigilantes were always fugitives. It's just that sometimes the police officers targeted them and sometimes they didn't. Oliver going to prison was not worth the benefits promised by one of the worst characters on the show, Samantha Watson. But overall, I still love this episode, and I think 4 or 5 would have been a reasonable spot. But I'll explain why number 4 is the season 7 finale. So that puts Life Sentence at number 5 on this list. Next, at number 4 is the season 7 finale, You Have Saved This City. This episode was awesome. I watched the first 15 minutes and thought of it as a horrible episode, but it was such a good ending. This season didn't really have a main villain for most of it, and even when Emiko was the main villain, she was a bad villain. She was definitely one of the worst villains on the show. The Ninth Circle was also a pretty useless threat since they were meant to be the biggest criminal organization or something, but they were just henchmen. I hated the idea that Emiko could be redeemed just because she is Oliver's half-sister. That's the same logic they've been using to defend Laurel, which also makes no sense. Black Siren is a murderer and she deserves punishment for her crimes. And she makes more mistakes no matter how many chances they give her, and they expect redemption for everything. It would have just been better to keep Laurel alive or just keep her dead, but that's a separate issue. I loved when they brought back Tommy for the previous episode, but at the same time his purpose there was kind of pointless. I mean, come on. Oliver finally starts seeing clearly and decides to treat her like anyone else would be treated and kill her. Emiko threatened Oliver's kid. She's basically beyond redemption. There's just so many double standards. But, okay, even with all these issues in the episode, the reason it's at number 4 is because of the last 20 minutes or so of the episode. It felt like they just got rid of Emiko so they could have a proper ending and set up season 8 perfectly. That's fine for me since I never liked Emiko and the season 7 arc anyways. The flash forwards were not good, but they weren't bad. They don't add much to the episode, but they don't take away from it either. The last 20 minutes or so were just awesome. Montages like that could have easily been really bad, but you just felt happy for Oliver for finally getting the life he deserved. He had his kid and he had the life he always wanted to have with Felicity. And then just a couple of months or so later, the writers take it away. It was a really good decision. The writers have to be tough, and even if they have made some bad decisions in the past, not letting Oliver get his happy ending made this episode really impressive. The monitor was good, and it set up the next season perfectly. This episode was just so sad. This was the most emotional one. And the acting is a big reason why this episode is so good. Felicity may not have been everyone's favorite character, but Emily's acting is one of the best on the show. And she was good in this episode as well. Stephen Amell was always good, and he was also really good in this episode. It's just a perfect ending and a perfect setup for a season full of Oliver's quests. So that puts You Have Saved This City at number 4 on this list. Number 3 is the season 5 finale, Lian Yu. Ratings-wise, this was the best finale. Merlin had a good ending. It felt like they were just waiting for the right time to kill him, but that was fine. This episode was still really good. The real reason this episode is not at number 1 or 2 is the ending. My problem with this episode is the ending. That's the only reason it does not make it to number 1. First of all, the ending was one of the best endings ever. Adrian and Oliver have their final fight, and then Lian Yu explodes. The reason this episode is so highly rated is because of this scene. Lian Yu exploding meant all of the characters were assumed to be dead. But this was all ruined by the first episode of season 6, where it was revealed that one person died and one was injured. Come on, I came from watching Flash, so I knew that Felicity and Diggle survived the explosion, which I'm fine with. But they need to do the explosion differently if they're just gonna let everyone survive. Adrian is too much of a mastermind, and he is too dedicated to only let one person die from an explosion like that. Not that they changed anything. Oliver fought Constantine, and the rest was all clips we saw from the pilot. But the conversation with Oliver's mom was a good bonus. So that puts Lian Yu at number 3 on this list. Alright, next is the season 2 finale, Unthinkable, in second place. I have a bigger problem with the season 1 finale, Sacrifice, but when I watch both of them, I still prefer season 1. But season 1 and 2 were both peak Arrow, and both of the seasons and finales are basically flawless. As a season, I prefer season 1 over season 2 though. I preferred when Oliver killed. He always went to two extremes. Either he kills anyone including henchmen or minor criminals, or he does not kill anyone, including the most evil people. I always thought he would find a balance, but it never happened. I think Slade's Mirakuru soldiers should have been killed in Unthinkable. My problem is that if killing is the solution to ending the siege and saving so many lives, then Oliver should just do it in this situation. Not killing Slade is fine because he is evil because of the Mirakuru. His soldiers are just evil in general, and I think they should die to end the siege. I remember in the beginning of season 2, Oliver decides to stop killing, but when it involves saving Felicity, he decides to kill because there is no better option. This was the perfect middle ground in my opinion. Killing won't be his first option, but he will when it's necessary. I know that I'm being really nitpicky with the season 2 finale, but I just did not like how Oliver did not fight Slade until he did not have Mirakuru in him. Oliver would have become the ultimate warrior, fighter, and everything if he defeated a Mirakuru soldier as a human. The entire last quarter of the season is them trying to give Slade the Mirakuru cure, but I expected Oliver to defeat Slade with pure agility instead of just evening the playing field. But that's not even a complaint, just something that could have been done differently. That said, the episode was still really good, especially the side-by-side flashback fights that happened. That was just awesome and perfect for this season, and one of the many reasons why this episode is so good. So that puts Unthinkable at number 2 on this list. Number 1 is the season 1 finale, Sacrifice. The season 1 finale was just perfect. Everything was awesome. The rooftop fight was so good that they used that style of fighting at least 20 other times with villains like Diaz, Emiko, and Slade. I would have preferred if they did a continuous fight instead of cutting to other events while the fight was happening. The way he finished off Malcolm Merlyn by stabbing himself in a non-lethal area but in an angle where it would hurt Malcolm Merlyn was just epic. Merlyn was an amazing villain in season 1 before he was a bit overused. Tommy dies, but I do have one problem with this episode. Laurel is probably the worst part. She is told to stay out of the glades, but she does not listen, and then, even when Quentin is telling her to leave, she won't listen. That was so annoying. If she listened, Tommy would have been alive. The point of the press conference done by Moira was so that the undertaking would not cause any casualties, but Laurel just would not evacuate. And it ended with Oliver failing. That's just something you barely see. And it was really good. But the season 1 finale, Sacrifice, is still awesome and the best finale overall in my opinion. Overall, I enjoyed watching this episode more than the season 2 finale, which is why Sacrifice is at number 1 on this list. So here is the ranking. Top 3 was probably the most difficult to decide because if you go by ratings, season 5 is the best. But season five's ending was the only episode that was ruined immediately by the next episode. And taking that into consideration, I put Lian Yu at number 3 on this list. I'm happy with this ranking and I might make one for The Flash as well. Thanks for watching.